has deteriorated. Today's green is less.
Well, I guess if you were, but the thing is, you can't. At least I'm thinking, if you are in a society that's mostly, blue and orange, you can't be playing turquoise. You got to play at least in the neighborhood of where the people are.
See, that's a conversation I had with another guy, Joe Perez, online. Was King second tier, or was he still first tier? So I want to say he's still first tier because I don't see him as running circles around everybody else. He did have blind spots, and there were things that Stokely Carmichael brought up that I think were really valid points. Like one thing Stokely Carmichael kept saying was he hated the media coverage of the marches because, like the March on Washington, the media specifically took pictures of white people marching with black people at March on Washington. So when you read the paper, you would think it's 20 or 30% white, the march. Actually, it was just a sprinkling of white people there. And he also talked about how the black people who died never got medals of freedom for protesting. So LBJ was giving out medals of freedom, but none of the black people that died ever got them. It was only the white guys that died. And so there was stuff that Carmichael said that I agreed with, and I felt like King should also have spoke out against, Another problem with the SCLC was that it wouldn't let women be in charge because the Bible says that women have to serve and not be in charge. So the SCLC actually was started by a woman named Ella Baker.
Wow.
And she was the interim president, and then when all the men came in, they said, well, you can't be president because you're a woman. And they took over. So there was stuff that he had blind spots on. And Ella Baker ends up leaving and organizing with CORE, because CORE is a secular organization. It's not Christian. So there were blind spots with King and things I feel that...
Well, the blind spots with everybody.
Yeah.
Kim Wilbur has blind spots.
Yeah.
He's literally the definition of third tier, but second tier, so I don't...
Okay.
Well, Ron sent this this guy, what's that guy's name who did that?
Wheel? Jeremy Wheel or Jenny?
Sometime. Anyway, it was about, he created this group that did consulting for companies with Integral, and it doesn't work. And he goes through what the downsides are of integral theory. That you keep, is it an hour long?
I didn't watch it.
I did. Yeah, it was fascinating. Really. But so this is a guy who tried to take Integral into the corporations and watched it fail.
What was it called? I don't know. I'm very interested.
But he just talks about what was downside while acknowledging what he created.
It's a Rebel Wisdom interview, isn't it?
Yes, Rebel Wisdom.
Rebel Wisdom. There's a couple of British journalists who are making a lot of...
Who are great.
Yeah,
absolutely great.
Yeah, but I definitely think in some organizations you couldn't bring an integral leader in. They would just eat them up and spit them out. Like,
I would argue a truly integral leader, he or she would be able to blend in no matter what.
Yeah,
this guy's very astute. You should.
Is that a website, Rebel Wolf?
Yeah, it's a YouTube. It's YouTube.
Oh, it's a YouTube. Well, it's interesting you were talking about King. Well, this is your presentation, but they had David Oyelowo who played King.
Oyelowo, yeah.
And it was actually, yesterday I was watching Ari Melbourne, and he was talking about that. He was kind of saying similar things to what you were saying, because he basically had to...
Jamie Wheel.
Oh, Jamie Wheel.
W-H-E-A-L.
He's the guy that wrote the book with
right.
Kotler.
That's right.
So he was talking about King and just about like the magnitude, like the flaws and also the strings. And it was just really interesting because that was the guy that played him with the thing, and he was plus he's British too. David Oyelowo.
Yeah, I might have to Google that, and that'd be interesting hearing a British perspective on that. But I don't know. I'm careful before I say King was second tier though. There's something about me is very careful before I say that.
Who is second tier?
Right.
I think Bimramo and
Cynthia
Becker.
Bourgeois.
I think Becker was the Indian Dalit that was a liberator in India. I like a lot of the things he said. I think he was extremely he had an extreme wide range of topics he was an expert in. He was a linguist, he was an economist, he was also an expert in constitutional law. And I think that and Becker's thinking was a little further ahead than King's. I think King was extremely ahead of his time in America. But I don't know.
What was Becker's impact
Terry.
relative to King now?
Oh, he ended
My
down
friend Andy
untouchability
came
in
over
India.
to watch the NCAA games the other day, and I had my
Yeah.
India T-shirt.
He
was
constitutionally
taught that he
ended
paid you for what it was.
untouchability.
Do you remember that? He had forgotten about it.
Howard
I
Thurman,
have no
integral.
memory, but I
Huh?
can go see
Howard
if I've done that
Thurman.
one.
Okay.
I don't know how I don't know if he would be
said,
integral.
"Oh."
I gotta look at him more.
Because he's
So
like
was when he
very
was here that
influential
night,
with
I
Kings
guess.
too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, he forgot about it, so it's not that critical.
You know, I
And
think-
Boston University has a Howard Thurman Center.
I'm gonna check that out. I'm
Yeah,
gonna look
I
into
didn't
him.
realize, yeah.
I'm gonna look
That's
into
where
him.
AOC came from, Boston University.
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking. So I'm still working on this.
Your mind holds a lot of data. Mine does not.
He's the engineer. He's the engineer.
I've been working on this for a couple of months now.
And the
though.
historian too. I mean.
Yeah, I've been working on this for a couple of months though. And I've been really
Really
thinking.
shows. I very much appreciated getting the
It's
big
more than a
picture.
couple of months. This is a lifetime's thinking.
Yeah, I've been
He's a
studying
college
King.
professor here, a graduate seminar.
I love King. I've always loved King. I mean, so
So two contradictory big picture feelings. The one is, my gosh, in some ways we slip backwards. Why aren't we seeing that same standard being born today? And one, might think this is crazy, but when you talked about how you had to combat the notion that black people were unequal because that would justify segregation. We have gone a long way in that because now anybody who is in any way disabled, kids get full education right alongside, whatever resources are needed, we give them to them. So in that way we've come up, but how the two meet, I don't know.
yeah. I mean, it's a big problem is underfunding of schools, and I also think that we have to recognize a school in an inner city area that's unstable serves a different purpose than a school in a suburban area that's stable. So I mean, you can't say that. Like, I think inner city schools should be open from like 6 to 8 p.m. to where you can send your kid there. They can do all their homework there. You get your food free, so you can you can go there, concentrate, do all your learning. Because when you come home, we're not expecting you to be able to do homework and get help from your family because they weren't educated either. So so we should come into the situation of inner city schools with a whole different understanding. Like, the goal isn't to make a suburban school in the inner city, and the learning they do there should be very applicable to their life and to getting an actual job. Like, let's say you had a really good Russian professor that was willing to go into an inner city school or whatever. Okay, so the kids learn Russian. So what are they going to do with that? Who's going to hire a black kid from the inner city to translate Russian? I mean, could you imagine, like, you're getting, Russian and then shows up in a do-rag and like, so I mean, you got to be realistic about what jobs they're going to actually get there. So when you come, we should come into the inner city school, because I talked to a guy at work about this for a long time, about different things we can improve the school system, because I'm big on helping kids at schools. I tutored for a long time. I just came from Career Day today. I did Career Day at Phelps. And I think it's really important to come into the idea of an inner city school my goal isn't to make the suburban school here. It's to build a school that serves the needs of this community. So I think, now that's something that Integral, I think, could really help with. I think an integral understanding can really help with that. So.
Yeah, do you ever listen to The Daily? It's the podcast for the New York Times, Michael Barbaro.
Oh, you talk about it a lot. I should start listening to it.
So it was actually really interesting because he was talking about Stuyvesant High School, which is like this high school in New York City that's like a magnet school and stuff. And they were talking about it was like, you have to take this entrance exam to get into this place. And like only 7 black kids got into the school.
Uh-huh.
And I'm thinking that this is kind of ludicrous. I mean, this school is like people like, it's basically people that get into the school are able to go on to higher universities.
Harvard, Yale,
and
places
all
like
this kind of
that.
stuff. It's a public school too, and it's kind of like. But what was really interesting about it was just like how a lot of Asian families are like putting their kids through this kind of stuff, and like they're not even rich Asian families.
Yeah.
And stuff, and they're talking about the whole dynamic of the thing going. And then part of it was really interesting too was they had some of the students talking, like the 7 students, and their experience being at the school and stuff like that. So I thought that was really interesting, because right now there's a big fight to get rid of the test. Because, I mean, this is 7 students, I mean, that's ridiculous. With
Yeah.
750 applicants, I mean, 750 spaces.
One of
Yeah.
the things is, what do the schools teach? Because I was really struck when my kids were in high school, because everybody would complain about PG County schools. You know, but it depends on what you take there. My daughter had finished Calculus 2 by the time she was a junior in high school.
Wow, that's
You know, and I took Calculus 1 in college. So it was there and available if you chose to take it. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, everybody's complaining about these schools, but the damn education is there.
But was it paid by property taxes, or was it paid by?
It's property taxes.
So are there parts of PG that are just, the property taxes won't support good schools? I don't know about
I
PG.
don't, well, they're
Countywide.
countywide, it's probably middle income to lower income, I would think.
Yeah,
It's
PG.
the wealthiest majority black county in the nation.
Yeah, it is.
It's the poor sister around here, but
Right.
nationwide it's like the 20th richest county.
Yeah, no.
That's racial wealth disparity right there. You
That's
know.
partly because, I mean,
Yeah.
I remember, 8 or 10 years ago, 5 of the 10 richest counties in the country were in the DC
They
area.
still are.
Still are.
I think more of them are.
Yeah,
It's
like
shifted around,
Arlington.
but it's.
Falls Church,
Falls Church,
where the
yeah.
policemen drive Volvos. Montgomery County,
The policeman drive
Fairfax
all those.
County.
A coworker at Trader Joe's is applying to become a fireman in Arlington, and was talking about how recently there was a flood of people trying to become firemen in Fairfax County, because there was this newspaper article that revealed that with overtime and everything else, some of the firefighters, you know, guys riding the trucks, are making $350,000 a year.
Yeah, California had the thing when they looked at it, it was like
I
$750,000.
got my job in Montgomery County because of what the fire inspectors were doing. Now, this is what they did. The fire inspectors were guys who'd come off trucks at some point in their careers. And what they were doing was they would walk onto a job, fail an inspection for whatever reason. And they said, well, we can't get back for 3 weeks. And all these, you know, when you're getting an inspection, you're ready to open. They said, but we can do it on overtime. So the minimum overtime pay is 3 hours. So what they would do is they'd fail a couple inspections during the day, then come in and do 3 overtimes, spend like 15, 20 minutes at each one, and get 12 hours of overtime. And the developers just got pissed off with the county executive. You got to do something about this. And they can. Basically, they sent them all back to the trucks, and I got a job.
Yeah, well, remember Montgomery County where the fire, they were sending them to Mexico to learn Spanish rather than to go to the community college. They were across the street. It was literally I mean, it was like a complete article.
The community college was across the street.
Across the street to learn Spanish. They had to go to Mexico for the training.
I like that.
I do it too if I had it now.
Oh, I would do it too. I
It's
wouldn't.
ridiculous. I mean, it was just. Well, when I was at the Navy Yard, we had the firefighters there, and there were 2 sets of books. So like what they were making, and then what they were making with the overtime, and it was like quadruple. They were like 6 figures. These guys.
I mean, yeah.
It was a racket.
It's
That's
a
what it
total
was.
racket. Well, I mean, hello, going to Mexico to learn Spanish, they can't go to Montgomery College.
And a lot of them just went to other jurisdictions. To Frederick, someone went to Frederick, some went to Frederick County, some went to the city of Frederick, which is a different jurisdiction. Some went to Gaithersburg, has no jurisdiction. It was a racket. I mean, I didn't even know, because they had to sort of train us. And it was clear they didn't want us there. It was months later where I heard the whole story and figured out why they were pissed.
We want to hear Rack. When I was in North Carolina, we had the firefighters were the union there at the base. We were giving them with overtime free training to be an EMT, which were like college level courses, and they were going to get this free. They didn't have to do anything. They were even getting overtime to go to their classes.
Damn.
Well, they filed grievances. They filed UOPs. They said, "Why are you making us do this? Why are you doing this?" I mean, they were the biggest bunch of whiners on the planet. And they were stupid. I mean, literally, not about that, but we literally had a meeting about them arguing that a polo shirt is fire protective equipment. I mean, that was enough for me to get the fuck out of North Carolina. Because it was like, that was the stupidest group of people I think I've ever encountered.
Yes, they get away with it.
They were getting away with it. They were, well, the crazy thing about it was the fire chief was trying to bring order and chaos to the place. And then it was like a new set of commanding officers came in, and then they came after the fire chief. It was just like.
You know, your idea about schools serving as kind of one-stop service centers. I was just reading yesterday that in Western China, where they're trying to subdue the Uyghur populations, they're
The
doing
what populations?
the Muslim
Oh.
Chinese Muslims. They're doing a police station on every corner, and they're calling it a neighborhood convenience center. And so kids can get tutored and you can get a meal and what have you. But as a result, the police know the face and the voice of every person. Every person is 100% watched.
Yeah, they have facial recognition. They're just putting. I mean, basically, it's going to be a complete and total police state. That's what it's going to be. In fact, they've locked up
Great community services.
Yeah, have they locked up a couple of million people?
That's
No, that was another
That is a
one.
horrible.
Yeah.
well, that's your James. That's your James Meredith right there. James Meredith was like, anytime the government helps you, they're going to take something from you too.
Is James Meredith still alive?
I don't think so. I think he died recently,
'Cause
but
he became kind of like almost like a libertarian toward the end.
he was a
right?
huge libertarian. Another great libertarian was Medgar Evers' brother, Charles Evers.
Oh,
That was Medgar Evers' brother.
younger.
I
or
don't like
older?
Younger.
libertarians.
So I mean, in
It's all
Mississippi.
about me.
Well, see,
Well, I know that you might be a good case to become a libertarian if the government's doing nothing but oppressing you, though. I mean,
yeah, I mean that was James. That's James Meredith's thing, and that's why Morgan Freeman. You know, they always because Morgan Freeman's a libertarian, and so I always took him as a person who probably read a lot of Meredith. He probably read a lot of Medgar Evers and
Yeah,
Charles
probably,
Evers,
yeah.
and he disagrees with them because Morgan. They always play every Black History Month. They play Morgan Freeman's soundbite where he says that we don't need a Black History Month. We just need to study history and just include Black people into history. And that's fine. And I agree with that. James Meredith's case against the University of Mississippi was that I made the grades to get in. My scores were high enough, so you should let me in. It shouldn't matter that I'm Black. I don't want to be taken as an individual. So he's against affirmative. Meredith actually is against affirmative action and he's Black. So that's what kills me about conservatives. Instead of actually sitting down and learning about different perspectives from Black people, so they can find someone who's actually conservative that they can call. So hey, you know, James Meredith actually agrees with me. They try to force saying King agreed with them. I'm like, dog, like people are going to read King. Like you don't think we're going to Google that shit? Like really? So like I don't understand why conservatives don't ever talk about James Meredith or Charles Evers. You
Because
know?
they've never done the reading.
Yeah. But I mean, James Meredith, he makes a good case, man. But I mean, you know, he's one of those 100% Second Amendment. You know, you can't depend on the government to protect you. Half the cops are Klansmen in Mississippi, so he's not expecting them to help him out. You know, that's why he's got his guns.
I was also struck as you were going over all the various perspectives, how there's like an ecosystem of niches
Uh-huh.
of beliefs, and every niche is going to be filled, and probably always going to be filled, although the majority might swing more or less where they are.
Yeah, studying Michaud. I can't wait to do a presentation on Michaud when I get that done. Solomon
He was the
Michaud.
Creole?
He was the Creole guy, and he was essentially a white supremacist. I mean, he was just insane. Like some of his writings, I'm just like, he didn't really say this. Please tell me.
Was he in the 40s or the 50s?
Yes, his radio show started in Arlington in the 1940s. He was the first preacher, black or white, to have a televangelism show. It was called The Happy Hour.
God.
So Michaud believed in upper left reductionism. So the idea of it was that it doesn't matter what my actual circumstances is. Because Jesus loves me, I'm going to be happy. So it doesn't matter if you bust my head in or won't let me go to school or won't let me get a job. I'm just going to be happy because I love Jesus. And that was his whole preaching. And that's why he called it the happy hour. So and so
There's nothing but upper left.
nothing but upper left. I'm just gonna be happy because Jesus loves me, and so that's why so many people loved it. White people loved his show because nothing about that philosophy challenges them. So of course he's the one that they let be in Griffith Stadium. Why wouldn't you let that guy be at Griffith Stadium?
Where was Griffith Stadium?
It's over near Howard University.
Oh, is it
Yeah.
still there? Or what would it
No,
become?
I mean, I saw one game there when I was 9. The next game I saw was at DC Stadium, which is over where now called RFK.
Now, do you remember any of the revivals? Because they stopped in '67. Okay.
My
Your dad definitely wasn't a revival guy, right?
Hardcore Catholic.
I got it.
Yeah, he's definitely not a revival guy.
Alrighty,
I mean, he taught at
next-
Catholic. He
next
taught,
month
but he
we've
taught
got,
Arab
Barbara on
theology.
charity.
So he's not
We're
going
not
to a hold
after
down
that,
revival
so,
with
we're
crazy
not looking at that,
preaching
so we're
and
looking at topics for,
I mean, we had nuns
June,
and priests
July.
in my living room all the time.
Polarities.
And they were theologians.
So-
Touch your see that.
Good, so good to see
Philosophers.
you.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you
Well,
came,
good
man.
to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Well,
Yeah, I'm glad you
And
came.
you're living in the district, right?
Yeah, 16th Street.
Yeah, but he was known for having a very flamboyant service. So he was an old vaudeville performer. So he was really out there, and you can still go on YouTube and find type in "Happy Am I" so my show. It'll come right up in the song "Happy Am I." It's his theme song. It played before all of his radio shows. It was a theme song to his television shows. Just "Happy Am I, Happy Am I."
but what did he say on the show? I mean, just.
Well, one, he went after King after the March on Washington. So
Oh.
Michaud was actually part of this FBI program of government preachers.
Wow.
So J. Edgar Hoover had an army of preachers to preach the idea that integration will come after Jesus says it's okay to integrate. So Jesus has to actually come back
Oh.
to integrate us.
That's convenient.
That's very convenient. That's extremely convenient. And Michaud was one of those preachers. So he railed against MLK, called him a communist. Had rumors about him being lewd and lascivious.
Yeah, they had a whole FBI file on.
Yeah, so Michaud was one of the people that were going out of his way to undermine King. But I think Michaud,
Was he jealous of King? Is that the whole idea?
part of it was, yeah. And then because Michaud saw himself as the modern day prophet Samuel.
Who is Samuel again?
Samuel's the one that was the prophet to King David and King Saul.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, Solomon Michaud saw himself as pretty important. And a 20-year-old's upstaging him and showing him up. So that bothered him. 26-year-old. That's another thing about King. He's 26, 27. Like, there's no excuse. Like, like he had just got his PhD and did Montgomery. Like, he mailed his PhD thesis in halfway through the boycott.
Wow.
Like, that's how young this man is.
What was how old was when he died? He was,
39.
that was it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I'm sorry the two of you are not going to be joining us on the retreat this year.
Yeah, I got things happening.
And thrilled to pieces that you will be. And, you know, I've got your name down in blood now, so
Well, last year the issue was finances.